Hey everybody, thanks for having me. Thanks to all the organizers and attendees. So I'm going to talk about why I think we're addicted to agreement. And I'll start with a story. This story comes from Dr. Anna Lembke's wonderful 2021 book. It's called Dopamine Nation. Jacob is an ordinary man seeking treatment for an unusual problem. He is addicted to masturbation. Now, at the start, I want to acknowledge that masturbation can be a healthy part of a person's sex life. But Jacob's habit stretches far beyond those boundaries. Jacob recalls masturbating almost every day throughout his childhood and teenage years. At 18, he moved in with his sister to study at the university in her city. His sister was gone much of the day working, so Jacob used the time home alone to build a masturbation machine. I'll spare you the details, only to say that Jacob would adjust the speed of this machine to maintain a pre-orgasm state for hours. He would use it multiple times per day. As Jacob grows older, his machine takes on even more sophisticated and perverse forms. You can read Dopamine Nation to see how his story ends. Now, why does Dr. Lembke choose to open her book with this bizarre and unusual case? Well, perhaps because it's actually not so unusual. Lembke claims that we are, quote, all of a sort engaged with our own masturbation machines. And I think that there is some truth to this. We live in an age of extraordinary technological addiction, and things have only gotten worse since Lembke's writing. We are hopelessly hooked on social media, platforms where we tend to live out fake and performative lives, superficially relating to others while desperately attempting to show off how sexy our own experiences are. And even those of us who don't have social media find ourselves hooked to the smartphone, compulsively checking email, texts, even just scrolling through pictures. We are all a little bit like Jacob. We live in such an age of addiction that the historian David T. Courtwright has coined the term limbic capitalism to describe our socioeconomic situation. He defines it as a technologically advanced but socially regressive business system in which global industries, often with the help of complicit governments and criminal organizations, encourage excessive consumption and addiction. The limbic system, of course, refers to the brain's reward system, and Courtwright's term helpfully picks out how our economy has become so extraordinarily adept at squeezing as much dopamine as it can from our brains, often for trivial, vapid, and meaningless rewards. Fast food, drugs and alcohol, likes and retweets. Now, how does the social epidemic of addiction relate to today's talks? Decisive dialogue, knowing when to say no. It relates because I think we are all, in an alarming way, addicted to agreement, addicted to the reassurance of hearing yes. The technological environment has smothered us in a blanket of false comfort. As Lembke says, quote, we are drowning in dopamine. We now need more reward to feel pleasure and less injury to feel pain. We have, in fact, developed such a low tolerance for discomfort that it has become cringe to ask someone out on a date in person. Ideological homogeneity in our immediate social circles is the overwhelming norm. And even the outrage and dramatic polarization seen on social media brings about its own strange brand of comfort. It's the smug comfort of assumed moral superiority. All of this has culminated with the ultimate yes man, ChatGPT. Although LLMs are no doubt useful and impressive, many are dangerously sycophantic. And I'm just going to go off script for a second here to say that there was a really interesting study published literally yesterday in the prestigious journal Science about the sycophancy of AI. They tested 11 of the most used LLMs. And anyway, you should really look it up. It's a really interesting study. Limbic capitalism, of course, incentivizes companies to program AI for entertainment, not enlightenment. And with every query, we risk offloading our cognitive labor, making ourselves more and more avoidant of the intellectual friction that is an intrinsic part of genuine education and inquiry. So how do we treat our addiction to agreement? I'm not sure that the solution is that we just toughen up and be contrarian all the time. I think that kindness and sensitivity really do matter. But all along, we should keep in mind that our expectations for comfort and our allergy to awkwardness can inhibit authentic education and intellectual growth. One reason diversity is so valuable is that it leads to awkwardness, different, conflicting perspectives, each with their own unique kernels of truth. Airing our differences necessitates sitting with discomfort. And the process is valuable because it brings us all a little closer to reality and closer to one another. The question driving these talks is when to say no. So I'll try to answer that in closing. First, quite simply, I think professors should say no to electronic devices in the classroom. I've banned laptops, phones, and tablets in all of my classes to great effect. In this newly open space of dialogue, I urge my students to cultivate an almost spiritual appreciation for the preciousness of just being together, discussing ideas with no technological mediation between us. This is now a rare event in today's society. And it's uncomfortable at first, but all spiritual exercises are. Now, when else to say no? My general answer is much more often. Practice recognizing how disagreement and a firm no actually advance the intellectual discussion. Far too often, especially on social media, we treat disagreement as a zero-sum game with a winner and a loser. But there's a real sense in which we can all win from disagreement. It can be reframed as a positive-sum game, a productive intellectual activity. Playing the devil's advocate can actually make everyone richer. We enter uncharted territory, glean new insights, and practice seeing the world from alternative perspectives. Now, my talk isn't a call for moderation. Some opinions are wrong and need to be challenged. Rather, I'm calling for a very uncomfortable kind of empathy. We might call it radical empathy. Radical empathy requires a genuine attempt to climb into the mind of someone who disagrees with you. It's an attempt to see the world from their perspective and to recognize the strongest reasons that they have to believe a view that you might consider insane. Radical empathy requires recognizing that you yourself would believe this view if you had had their personal experiences in life. And finally, it requires a willingness to sit with the discomfort of recognizing all of this. So if anyone disagrees with anything I've said, I'd love to hear it. Thank you.